All Out Adventures was founded in 2001, and it was really in response to trying to completely respond to the Americans with Disabilities Act, which had been passed in the 90s. So the Massachusetts State Parks had made a bunch of accessible infrastructure improvements. So there's accessible fishing docks and accessible restrooms and accessible parking spaces. But it was really a recognition that people who have disabilities are not going to access the state parks and these outdoor places without support, that's the sort of really critical second piece of accessibility. And so All Out Adventures initially was founded to support the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation's Universal Access Program. And that's the arm of the state parks that works on accessibility throughout the state parks. Since our founding in 2001, we've grown. We run programs now for people who have disabilities throughout the state parks in Massachusetts, for seniors and for veterans. We serve people of all ages and all abilities, so including people who have physical disabilities, developmental and cognitive disabilities, autism, brain injuries, kind of the whole gamut. We've worked with toddlers, and we've worked with, our oldest participant was 99 years old. We work throughout Massachusetts, so about maybe 60% of our programs are in the Connecticut River Valley, but the remainder we do out to Central Mass, Eastern Mass, and there's demand for us now in Rhode Island, and we're starting to run some programs in Rhode Island as well. In a typical year, we run about 180 programs statewide, and we serve about 700 individuals, fill about 2,300 participant slots with our programs. For many people who have disabilities, the social isolation is a piece that's not always spoken of. Many people who have brain injuries in particular, a result of that brain injury can be personality changes that can end up making it very hard for them to stay socially connected with people. And so, many of the program participants we work with kind of need a reason and support to be able to sort of get out and participate. And so, one gentleman we work with quite a bit, he's actually a Greek military veteran and has a brain injury. And his wife told us a couple years ago that knowing he was coming cycling would give him a reason to get out of bed, put on his pants, and leave the house. And he does, and he would gain more mobility and more social connection through that. And we see that over and over again. We might have people whose mental health makes it, again, difficult to reach out and make connections, but they know when they come here, they're going to be supported and part of something. We've held birthday parties for people during, especially the early stages of the pandemic. We would call on people we knew were particularly isolated and check on them because they didn't necessarily have the social and societal supports that many people have. Shortly before the pandemic, All Out Adventures, we had been renting office space on State Street in Northampton for many years. And about a year before the pandemic, our landlord needed to overtake our office space, and we needed to search for new office space. And rents in Northampton had gone up really considerably, and it was a really just truly financially trying time for our organization. We were not having any success for a long time finding a space we could move into. We needed to come up with first last security deposit, and we were facing an increase of expenses. We had made it through that challenge, and in January of 2020 moved into new office space on Pleasant Street and put all of those pieces together. So then when the pandemic hit in March, I still remember this day so vividly. It was March 17th, and we'd already canceled a couple of programs, and the way we work seasonally as an organization is we run programs and then we bill for them. And because we run fewer programs in the winter and early spring, we always run a deficit in the winter and early spring. And it's in the spring and summer that we pick up and we're running programs and billing for them that we earn the money that sustains us through the year. So the timing of this hitting in March meant that after we'd already canceled 2 programs, I wasn't sure I'd be able to make payroll. And so I called our staff together and said we were going to suspend our operations. That I would support them in looking for unemployment. We were going to cut all of our expenses and just hope we could hold on and still be there on the other side. So we made these decisions. Everybody was able to apply for unemployment. We stopped running programs. The only thing we did was check in on participants until we were able to figure out how to run some virtual programs and do a few very small things, but we were just running bare bones, minimal expenses. We were doing this on 6 hours a week that we could do with unemployment. And so when we were able to get the stabilization grant, it took me from that survival, cut every expense possible and just try to exist, to realizing that we could start to plan for what All Out Adventures could look like in the pandemic and through the pandemic. It took so much pressure off me. We were able to just step back and look at the big picture and really kind of re-envision who we could be as an organization. One of our most significant sources of income is we sell and service recumbent trikes. And that had been growing in recent years. And we knew that the very best way we could help ourselves, especially with a renewed focus for so many people on being outdoors and on exercise, the very best way we could help ourselves would be to grow our recumbent trike sales. So we used the stabilization grant and we were able to purchase inventory of recumbent trikes, which we've never had before. Our model had always been that people would test ride a trike that we use in our programs and then we would custom order it for them. So using the stabilization grant, for the very first time, we had trike inventory. So we were able to assemble it ahead of time and have it ready for sale. And then when the global supply chain shortages hit, they've hit the bike industry hard. We had inventory. So very quickly, by last spring, trikes were being back ordered out to October of this year. And currently trikes are back ordered. If I tried to buy a trike right now, I couldn't get it till August of 2022. So that back order situation meant we wouldn't have been able to sell any trikes. But because of the stabilization grant, we had inventory. We were able to grow and build our trike shop, and that $30,000 stabilization grant in inventory actually meant about $50,000 of income to All Out Adventures through that inventory, and then also just that steadying hand of, okay, we can do this. Our mechanics had work and we kept growing, and that's been able to really support the base of our program operations. There's a woman who's been participating in our programs for years now. She's in her 70s. And she was in a downhill ski accident when she was in her 60s and has a spinal cord injury. She uses a wheelchair now, and she's always been just a really active outdoors person. She would go hiking and kayaking, obviously downhill skiing, anything she could do. So after her accident, when she rediscovered with All Out Adventures how she could be active again, it was really life-giving for her. She needs our support to transfer, so she comes sit cross-country skiing with us, she comes kayaking with us, and she comes for support with hand cycling. And she needs our support to transfer from her wheelchair into the kayak or onto the ski. With cross-country skiing, it's an awful lot of upper body work, so we use tethers, and a staff member would go in front with tethers to pull uphill or behind with tethers to help slow down on the downhills. And she just comes out whenever she has an opportunity. And one time she came to a kayaking program, and we'd had an intern working with us, and her job coach was sort of watching the process. And it's a long, steep ramp down to the dock where we work. So one of our staff members needs to help because her wheelchair brakes would get so hot. We helped her down the ramp onto the dock. It takes 3 to 4 people to help her transfer from her wheelchair into the kayak, and we do that transfer on the dock, and then we slip her kayak into the water. And this job coach, who'd never seen our program before, he turned to me when this process was over, and he said, that was like watching a butterfly come out of its chrysalis. She needed so much help to get into the boat, and then as soon as she was in the water, she was free. And it's so true. Once she is in the water, you can't tell that she has an injury, and she's paddling just like she always has before. And actually, just 2 weeks ago, I met her husband at the site where we run our programs, and they donated their kayaks to All Out Adventures. And what he said to me is, yeah, we're still going to come, and she's going to use her kayak, but we've realized we need your support in order to do it. And so now other people can use the kayaks in the meantime, but she's going to continue to come to that program and use her kayak and keep coming kayaking. And it has just meant that reclaiming that piece of herself has just meant everything to her.